Hello everyone. This story is about, what if Naruto was adopted by Guy and fell for Kurenai? Please like, share and subscribe. Now let's start. What had started as a mild October night became one of the most tragic days in the history of Konohagakure. The Kyuubi no Kitsune, greatest of the 9 Bijou, had destroyed a large section of the village. Many had died, civilian and shinobi alike, though the largest loss was Namake's Minato. The Yondaime Hokage of Konoha had used a forbidden sealing jutsu to lock the Kyuubi inside of a newborn child, even though the cost was his own soul. Despite the importance of the Yondaime and his powers, the vessel of the sealing was the true hero of that night. October 10th was henceforth a day of mourning, with the people refusing to see the truth of the child. This child was Uzumaki Naruto, the biological son of the Yondaime. This fact was kept a secret, however, and those close to Minato were forbidden from taking Naruto in. It was believed that the other hidden villages would attempt to assassinate or kidnap the child if his family was known, or if his status as Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi was discovered. The Sandaime Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, had allowed knowledge of what happened to the general public. It was to be what he considered his second biggest mistake. The old man had believed so strongly that the people would see Naruto as a hero, it nearly broke his heart to realize that wasn't the case. In an attempt to rectify his naivety, he had proclaimed it high treason to speak of the Kyuubi locked inside Naruto. He hoped that the next generation would grow up unaware, thus seeing him as the same as everyone else. That too would not happen as he hoped, rather, parents would warn their children to stay away from the energetic blonde. His early years threatened to leave him ill-adjusted, his lack of caring interaction setting a course to make him hateful and unable to tell when someone did care. He was blind to subtle displays of affection, and his mind and body were both malnourished. The worst to happen was again on October 10th, the matron of the orphanage he was in demanding he leave on his 5th birthday. As luck would have it, this was a blessing in disguise. 3 days later, the young boy would find himself in the office of the Sandaime, one of the few people that was nice to him. Gigi, I don't get it. She kicked me out, said it was dangerous for the rest of the kids for me to stay. I never hurt nobody, and. Naruto trailed off, tears forming in his bright blue eyes. Hiruzen sighed, doing his best to comfort the sobbing child in front of him. Only one mistake weighed heavier on his heart than exposing Naruto's status to the public, and that was only due to the betrayal he felt any time he remembered it. Naruto, I'm sorry. I might be able to do something, but you won't be able to stay at the orphanage again. Give me a minute to think, you can lie down on the couch by the door until I come up with something. Is that alright? Naruto nodded, lying down while the legendary shinobi rubbed his eyes. Now, the tired old man could give Naruto an apartment to live in, but that would leave him alone for a majority of the time, the exact thing he wanted to avoid. In one timeline, he would do so. There were none that knew Naruto, or would take him in that he could allow. His weariness would cause that decision. In this continuity, however, there was another option. Moments after Naruto laid down, one of the other few people that had treated him well before arrived in the Hokage's office. Daimato, the shining green beast of Konoha, dashed into the room, a shout of Yash, catching the attention of the room's 2 other occupants. Guy had once been given the mission to watch Naruto and make sure that no one told him about the Kyuubi. Unlike most shinobi, Guy was a supremely emotional man. When he had seen Naruto hide in the woods for a training ground and break down in tears from his treatment by the rest of the village, he had deviated from his mission parameters and spoken to the boy. He had even taken him to get some ramen when he asked the boy if he wanted anything to eat. Food was a great way to cheer people up, and the people at Ichiraka Ramen were some of the few that treated Naruto well. Of course, Naruto had stared dumbly at Guy's eyebrows for nearly 10 minutes before the garishly dressed man had snapped him back to attention by shouting how it was unyouthful to ignore him. The next minute had been Naruto trying to puzzle out what would possess a man to wear bright green spandex and orange leg warmers at the same time. In the end, he had decided that being a cool ninja meant you could wear whatever you wanted, and went to get ramen with the loud man. That had started a regular meeting to get ramen every week, which was as much as Guy was willing to eat ramen. It wasn't good for a regular diet. Hokage-sama, I have returned from my mission in Mizuno Kuni. It is as we feared, the Mizukage has become the epitome of unyouthfulness. Hiruzen gained a glorious plan as he looked at Guy. The intellect that had made the man famous as the professor before his power had taken precedence, and he had become the shinobi no kami making itself known. He had suspected Kirigakure for some time already, but he could actually fix one of his many problems now. Naruto took the time to greet the eccentric shinobi while the Hokage was lost in thought. Hey Meg eyebrows. You missed ramen this week. I had to come here to find out you had a mission. Naruto tried to work his small child magic and puppy eyes in attempt to guilt Guy into buying more ramen than usual next time. But the Hokage interrupted his efforts with a fully polished plan. Guy, I have something else that needs help, if you don't mind? After a quick nod from Guy, Hiruzen continued. Naruto here has been removed from the orphanage, and I don't have anywhere to put him right now. At least, I can't let him be anywhere without adult supervision. Since you two know each other already, I want you to take him in and watch him until other arrangements can be made. Yash. I would be beyond happy to help our youthful Naruto for as long as you need, Hokage-sama. I might even teach him some of the secrets of youth while I'm at it. Naruto's mouth dropped in surprise as Guy took his trademark nice guy pose and his teeth pinged with light reflected from the cosmos. Hiruzen had gotten used to it and managed to restrain his eyebrow twitch at the physically impossible display. Very well, Naruto, I'll come visit you too when I have something permanent set up. Try to behave in the meantime, eh? Naruto nodded frantically, amazed at his luck getting to live with one of the few people that liked him. Even if it was temporary, it was much better than he had expected. He wasn't exactly sure what the Hokage was talking about with behaving though, he'd never done anything worth worrying over. Guy brought Naruto to the apartment he lived in, after buying him some ramen. If Naruto was going to be living with him, the boy would be eating less ramen and more healthy foods, particularly meats and vegetables. Naruto already ate enough fruit when he could, but he had way too many starched in his diet for a prospective shinobi. Still, Guy had been gone for the regular ramen meeting the week before. And he would rather run 500 laps around Konoha on his hands while reciting aloud the tenets of youth than fail to keep his word. This is my home, Naruto. For as long as you stay here, I want you to consider it yours as well. I have a schedule for my training and meals, and after mid-morning post-breakfast training I go look for missions. I won't take any long-term missions while you're here, but I will take a few short ones. If you wish, you can follow my schedule and observe my training and eat with me. If you are youthful enough, you'll even be able to learn something from my training. Naruto didn't really get what Guy meant when he said youth, but he had a feeling it had nothing to do with his age. After all, if that was what he meant, Naruto was much more youthful than he was. He nodded anyway, he had wanted to be a shinobi ever since the Hokage had told him about them. He could be a hero and defend the village. Then everyone would have to like him. I'll do it, Databeo. What's your schedule? Fortunately for Naruto, neither he nor Guy even heard his verbal tick over their shared excitement. It wasn't like Guy hadn't heard it before, but Naruto hated letting it slip like he did. It didn't even really mean anything when he said it most of the time, it just flew from his mouth like projectile word vomit. I get up at 4 a.m., start with early morning training, take a 5-minute break to stretch, do my early morning training, followed with a hearty breakfast. After that, is my mid-morning post-breakfast training. I take missions afterwards until lunch, then do my early afternoon, mid-afternoon, and late afternoon training. Dinner follows that, then early evening, mid-evening, and after dark training. I go to sleep at 10 p.m., then the schedule restarts the next day. Naruto could see not only Guy's teeth gleam, but he could see the odd eyebrows wiggle in excitement while the man spoke of training. He made a note to remember the slowly growing evidence that Guy's eyebrows were alien caterpillars, before moaning internally at having already agreed to follow this crazy schedule. On the bright side, Guy was obviously a strong shinobi. The downside was the insane workload and low amount of sleep. He hoped it would be worth it. Hiruzen smiled as he watched the two of them through his crystal ball. He would show up in a month or so after Guy had gotten attached and say he had a place, then watch on in triumph as the eccentric Jonin asked to adopt Naruto. Naruto would get someone to care for him, Guy would get experience training before he picked a team, and he would get to know he made the poor boy's life a little easier. In the end, everyone would win. He would pat himself on the back if not for the ANBU watching. Actually, he might do so anyway, it's not like they would tell anyone. 3 weeks later, and Naruto was not regretting being placed with Guy one bit. Just the other day, some bullies had been hitting a girl and he had stomped them into the ground while Guy was doing his mission. Sure, they were older and students at the academy he wasn't able to go to yet, but he had sheer power and speed on his side. Plus, Guy had been giving pointers since Naruto was determined to try and copy the other man's movements. The girl had stuttered out a "thank you" before being dragged away from him by a guard. Now, they had managed to hit him a few times, but the amount of work he had put into his attempts to follow Guy had left him hitting trees at top speed several times. That hurt much more than some 7-year-old's fist did. He was currently at home with the hand seal guide he had been given, striving to gain the flexibility required to make seals quickly. Some of them, like the Tatsu seal, were difficult to form quickly enough to be useful in a fight. He didn't know any ninjutsu or genjutsu, obviously, but that was no reason not to practice. Guy was watching with an approving smile, though there was tension hidden under the surface. He had been spending a lot of time with Naruto, and he knew that when it came time, he wouldn't want to give that up. He felt that Naruto needed someone like him there, someone to care for him and teach him. He had a feeling that the academy teachers wouldn't appreciate the youthful blonde bundle of energy, and instead would try to subtly sabotage him. He sighed as he walked away. Kakashi had actually requested that they train together again. My most hip and cool rival. You aren't late, does this mean you have come to believe in youth? The silver-haired jounin suppressed a cringe. Knowing that he would have to put up with some ranting and a challenge to get what he really wanted. He had walked into the Hokage's office to ask why he hadn't been assigned to watch Naruto since leaving ANBU a week ago, when he had seen Naruto and Guy training in the crystal ball. His first instinct had been to attempt a genjutsu release, and his second had been to beg the Hokage for the right to take over his sensei's son's care. Unfortunately, neither had worked. HM? You say something, Guy? He chuckled to himself as his self-proclaimed eternal rival cried to the heavens about cool, hip, lazy, mask-wearing prodigies. I was just joking, but I did want to talk with you. I found out that you've been put in charge of Naruto for the time being. And I wanted to ask if you'd be willing to do me a favor when the Hokage comes to take him back. Kakashi's visible eyebrow rose when he saw Guy lose some of his spark at that comment. But he knew that he wouldn't stay down long. I will do my best to give you this favor, my eternal rival, though I truly can't look forward to that day. Naruto shows so much potential, dedication, and youth. Kakashi shook his head in self-pity, for he had stopped pitying Guy for his insanity long ago. Nowadays, he just pitted himself for having a madman for a best friend. Hell, his village was filled with nut jobs, but he had to have been friends with the craziest one. Actually, Guy, I think that you'll like this idea. Hiruzen had requested Guy to bring Naruto to his office, looking forward to the surprise on Guy's face when he asked the jounin to legally adopt Naruto as his own son. He had been planning for this since the day he watched the two in his office a month ago, and he just loved it when a plan comes together. It's good to see the both of you, though I wish it was under better circumstances. An apartment has opened up that has just enough room for a single person to live in relative comfort. Asud dash. I'm sorry to interrupt, Hokage-sama. Once I say this piece, I will run 100 laps of Konoha on my hands to make up for this disrespect. Hiruzen was in relative shock. The only people that ever interrupted him were the worthless fossils that used to be his teammates. He nodded his permission for Guy to continue speaking. Yash. Thank you. After having spent so long with Naruto, I believe it would be good for both him and I for me to officially adopt him. Naruto's eyes shot wide open in shock, having thought that he couldn't be adopted after so long ignored in the orphanage. The Hokage was likewise rendered speechless, as he had believed he would have to tell Guy that it was allowed for him to adopt Naruto. He soon realized just who had tipped Guy off that only Kakashi and Jiraiya were forbidden from doing so, considering that only one of those two regularly spoke to Guy. Well played, Kakashi. I took away your chance to adopt Naruto, and you took away the moment of glee I would have for orchestrating this little performance. I'll make a Hokage out of you yet. Considering that I was just about to tell you that you could do that, I suppose all that remains is asking Naruto if he agrees with your choice. How about it, would you like to live with Guy for the foreseeable future? Overcome with gratitude, shock, and another feeling he couldn't even begin to describe. The resident blonde instead nodded furiously. This led to him being swept up in a hug by Guy, and what was to be the first of many youthful scene changes. The Sandaime groaned internally, knowing that he would never be able to unsee the rose-colored world those two could create. He only hoped that this would be enough to make up for what Naruto's life had so far been. Naruto was disillusioned with the academy. His bookwork was terrible in spite of hours of studying, his ninjutsu and genjutsu were making terrible progress, and he was the leader of the class in taijutsu. Surprised? So was Naruto. His adoptive father constantly told him that hard work would allow someone to overcome all barriers, and that he was youthful, so everything would work in the end. Naruto was ashamed that even his taijutsu and stealth grades were not enough to raise him above dead last. Kiba was only a few points higher, but he was arrogant and rubbed his status in Naruto's face constantly. At this point, Naruto preferred the company of the brooding loner Sasuke to Kiba any day. Not to say they hang out, just trained near one another. In any event, Naruto decided he was right with his initial assessment of the academy, that it would be long, arduous, and a most unyouthful experience. Until his third year at least, as that year Iruka shaped up and apologized for the way he had been treating Naruto, and Naruto successfully passed Kiba due to his bookwork grades rising dramatically. Naruto now spent what free time he had either training in his father's Goken with the weights he received as an 8th birthday present, or asking Iruka for tips on the thrice-stamped clone jutsu. It made no sense to Naruto that the single easiest and the first jutsu taught to the class was the only one he could not reproduce. His replacement jutsu and transformation jutsu were flawless, but his clone was unusable. The third year of the academy also saw Naruto officially make his first friend his age, someone the antithesis of youth, Nara Shikamaru. It had started from that first detention they shared the first day, but didn't progress until the third year, when Shikamaru became curious enough about Naruto's treatment to question his father about it. This led to Shikamaru seeking answers from Naruto when his father alluded to some vague reference about troublesome people just can't see what's in front of their eyes, only what's behind their hearts. Naruto remembered the conversation he had with Shikamaru as if it had happened yesterday. "Hey Naruto," came an uncharacteristic shout from one Nara Shikamaru. Naruto ended his training of 2,000 kicks per foot before turning around and replying, "Yes, Shikamaru-san, what is it?" "Well, I've been wondering about the way that the teachers treat you. And the civilian-born students aren't any better. Do you know why?" A sad smile appeared on Naruto's face before he nodded and told Shikamaru, "For the longest time I had no clue, but my dad told me a little while ago. And while I could use some vague reference about kunais and scrolls, I think I'll just tell you. On the 10th of October, the Kyuubi attacked our village and was sealed away into a newborn baby. I was the only child born that day, and thus became the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi." Shikamaru had thanked Naruto for trusting him with the truth, and offered to hang out with him in their free time. Naruto accepted immediately, and burst into his first experience with youthful tears when Shikamaru further asked if Naruto could help him with his taijutsu. Being friends with Shikamaru instantly made you friends with Choji, and an acquaintance with Ino. Naruto never cared too much for Ino, and to a further extent Sakura's infatuation with Sasuke, and told her as much when he was reintroduced to her as a friend of Shikamaru's. That started a conversation about Naruto being jealous of Sasuke's good looks, and ended up with Ino retracting that statement after she appraised Naruto in depth for the first time. The black bodysuit of the third Hokage he wore showed defined muscle, far above what an 8-year-old should have. The haori on his back, while unadorned, was a piece that made him look noble as it blew in the wind. His face was a bronze tan, and was angular in a handsome way, with the whisker mark softening the look. His eyes were a sapphire blue that held people's attention, and sparkled like the gems they resembled. The breastplate was a rusty red color with a swirl hammered into the spot above his heart, making him appear fierce, but the smile he always wore comforted those set on edge by the armor. Ino had actually stated that the eyes, hair, and face made Naruto look like a miniature fourth Hokage, which had caused Shikamaru to pale and Choji to choke on his chips. As the two had spoken of that before, and came to the conclusion that if Naruto did not know then the Hokage must have a reason. Naruto's face crinkled into an obvious thinking pose for several seconds, before he hugged Ino, shouted his thanks and ran to talk with his father and the Hokage about what had just been discovered. Ino had blushed from the sudden contact with a boy she had just declared attractive, possibly nearly as much so as Sasuke, before returning to normal and leaving to follow her tall, dark, and handsome somewhere where the brooding was good. Shikamaru and Choji went to one of their usual relaxation spots. Naruto confronted his dad and Gigi about Ino's statement, and the truth was ignored until Naruto asked for a blood test to prove paternity, where Hiruzen cursed Guy for making Naruto smarter, and Guy began crying until Naruto assured him that even if the fourth had sired him, Guy was still his father. With the truth known, Naruto began training even harder. After all, he was going to be Hokage and surpass both of the men he looked to as fathers. Naruto requested that even if he were given scrolls of inheritance, his heritage itself remain hidden until he made Chunin, as he was nowhere near strong enough to protect himself from his doubtless future assassins. Despite his youth burning brighter than ever, he still could not make the basic clone jutsu work, and his dad stated that the only other clone he knew was a kinjutsu, and that he could not teach it to someone that was not already a shinobi. Iruka tried near the end of the year to help the most dedicated student in his class, but nothing they did seemed to help. Iruka discovered though that the amount of chakra Naruto put into one clone could create 60 clones, though all of them still turned out dead-looking and soon disappeared. With all other avenue of help exhausted, Naruto went to the Hokage for help, and prepared his full argument for why he needed a replacement for the clone jutsu. Gigi, I need something that can take the place of the clone jutsu for my ninjutsu. Even after 3 years of training, I have had no progress. The old man stared at the amalgam of miniature Hokages for a few minutes before replying, alright Naruto. I will allow your father to teach you the shadow clone jutsu on the condition you not use it until the graduation exam. Do I have your word? Of course Gigi, and should I fail to follow your condition I will run 400 laps around the academy training ground on my hands. That's all, wow. I could have done that way earlier. Naruto's youthful shout echoed in the small office, earning a groan from the Hokage. Without further ado a grinning Naruto dashed off to tell Guy about the Hokage's deal, shouting about learning something new being youthful. Hiruzen, meanwhile, simply thought to himself, you are lucky I already know you have the chakra to do that technique, otherwise who knows what would have happened. In a less youthful Narutoverse. Everyone still alive sneezed simultaneously. Back with Naruto, the hero was excitedly running back home. On his hands. He was also doing scissor kicks, while balancing rocks, not quite large enough to be boulders on his feet. Naruto's youthful exercises had ceased to catch the attention of the civilians for months, but even they were paying attention to him now. At least, in his head they were, as they were fervently congratulating him on becoming the 5th Hokage. His first decree of course was that his guilty pleasure, that being ramen, would have research done to make it still taste amazing, but also be incredibly healthy. His daydreams came to an end as he saw the humble apartment he shared with his youthful father, and he quickly righted himself and dropped his rocks before wiping his feet and announcing himself. Dad, I'm back. Gigi said you can teach me the shadow clone jutsu if I promise not to reveal it until I'm a genin. Guy's teeth flashed with an audible ping as he turned to Naruto, smiling at the news. Yash. My son, your training in this most youthful jutsu will begin immediately, but if you don't learn it within 3 days, you must have it done and usable without hand seals in 1 month. Naruto knew that these challenges were supposed to be penalty tasks. But he loved training and getting stronger so much he typically did them even when he didn't need to, his walk home being an example of this. Naruto's training continued in a manner like this until his 5th year in the academy, when he and his father were called in by the Hokage to his office about halfway through. When the youthful duo arrived, they met a stern-faced Hokage, whose frown and slouch combined to say that he had bad news. I have a busy day today, so allow me to get straight to the point. Guy, you can't be the Jounin sensei for Naruto's team, it would lead to unconscious favoritism, something the ideal of Konoha teamwork cannot allow. As such you will take one of the genin teams that graduates this year, the choice of team will be up to you. Naruto and Guy both appeared to be nonplussed by this news however, as it was something they had discussed before, and they agreed with the Hokage. Although Guy believed he should still be able to teach his son as the major clans taught their children even after selection. Hokage-sama, Naruto, and I agree with you about the favoritism, but if you tell me that I cannot teach my own son in my spare time, that is most unyouthful. Very well, Guy. There is a shinobi prospect this year I believe you might enjoy teaching though, he cannot mold chakra externally, or in high amounts. Leaving him as a taijutsu only shinobi, should you approve of teaching him? His name is Rock Lee. And thus a new person would be introduced into the youthful atmosphere, and he would admire Guy so much that, one day not far off, he would model himself on the youthful, but unfortunately fashion-challenged, shinobi. Rock Lee would also become Naruto's second friend his own age, and would prove himself an adept in the training method of youth. Naruto's training with his father changed focus after Lee was introduced to the Goken, as Naruto's mastery of the style was extreme, it was complete with the exception of the use of the 8 gates, which his father refused to teach him before he became a genin. With his only taijutsu practice being used to maintain his skill and increase his speed, strength, and reflexes, chakra control was his newest subject. Guy realized after learning of Naruto's problem with the clone jutsu that he wouldn't be able to use genjutsu without significant control exercises, and that his ninjutsu would also suffer from overcharged techniques that may or may not explode in the user's face or lungs. So Naruto got on the fast track with tree walking, while simultaneously holding stones to his body and practicing his taijutsu to make the training both more efficient and difficult. Naruto was actually capable of using the only genjutsu shown to academy students by the sensei there by the end of his 5th year, the illusion art, misdirection jutsu. Naruto's final year in the academy was easier than all of his previous years by far, leaving him in 2nd place in the class standings when the genin exam was finally taken. Due to the Rookie of the Year actually being a cumulative score decided upon by the scores of all 6 years, and with Sasuke using his fire style. Great Fireball Jutsu to gain extra credit in ninjutsu, he failed to earn the award. It didn't matter to the unflappable hero though, his father had promised him all he could eat ramen at Ichiraku's Ramen as a graduation reward. When he got back from the C rank, he had taken his team on anyway. So while Naruto sat on his favorite swing, watching the others get congratulated by their parents, a certain slimy Chunin walked towards him. Hoping to take advantage of the fact that Guy wasn't here to protect the object of his animosity. "Hey Naruto, I see your dad isn't here to pick you up today, how about you do something to make him extra proud when he comes back?" Mizuki said this in a kindly voice. One he had perfected after years of living in a village filled with those he considered simpering idiots. "What exactly do you think I should do, Mizuki-sensei?" "I really wish I could have been Rookie of the Year for him, but it's a cumulative reward." Naruto scrunched his face up and tilted his head while responding. Thinking too deeply to notice Mizuki's wrath that the brat he was speaking to was ever adopted and taught enough to even pronounce the word cumulative, let alone know what it meant. "Well Naruto, there is the extra credit exam, Sasuke failed it, so if you pass you will automatically be Rookie of the Year. All you have to do is sneak into the Hokage's office, take the forbidden scroll to training ground 8, learn a technique and hand me the scroll." The maniacal grin was thankfully only in Mizuki's head. Otherwise even someone like Naruto who was rather naive even after Guy's training would have caught on. Naruto snuck into the Hokage's office looking for the scroll Mizuki told him about, and found it completely undetected. Of course, he had just opened the window rather than gone through the whole building, and the scroll was propped against the Hokage's desk for some reason. So it wasn't exactly the chore Mizuki led him to believe, but hey, free scroll. The Hokage watched from underneath the ninja art, chameleon cloak jutsu that his favorite student created as Naruto took his scroll, and sent Anbu to follow immediately after the boy had left. He also had the distinct feeling he should feel thankful that he was not defeated by a humiliating technique, but shrugged that off. The Anbu kept at their task of following Naruto until he reached his destination, and even watched over him as he learned a new technique. Naruto quickly memorized the hand seals for his chosen jutsu, and even the entire description including fine print of what it did. After several hours of exhausting training, Naruto lay smiling and panting on the ground, the wielder of a brand new kenjutsu. It was then that Mizuki showed up, and 20 seconds later that he threw one of his impractically large shuriken. Naruto managed to duck, tired as he was. And even glared at someone for the first time since Iruka apologized to him. "Sensei, why did you attack me? I passed the test." "Your actions are literally the opposite of youthful, beyond unyouthful in every way." Malicious if not truly threatening laughter broke from Mizuki's lips, before a snarl was released with a few surprising words for our hero. "Why? You want to know why? Well, I'll tell you. You are the QB. That's right, the foul demon that destroyed the majority of this cesspool was never killed, but instead sealed into the form of a pathetic babe that night, and that baby is you." Ahahahihi. The odd laughter continued a few more seconds, before a confused Naruto watched the pathetic joke of a first villain be knocked out by the Anbu that had been there. Naruto really didn't get what Mizuki was on about though. He had been told that the fox was sealed inside him by his birth father, and that he was a hero that the civilians misunderstood. But Mizuki was a ninja, so why would he think something like that? Naruto quickly shrugged his thoughts off, before waving to the Anbu and returning to his home, saddened that he wouldn't be able to give his father a framed Rookie of the Year award. 1 week later, on the day that teams were to be decided, Naruto was as usual, the first person to sit down in the classroom. In spite of the relative dislike he had once held for the place, he had always attempted to arrive early for class, in an attempt to prove that he was deserving of being there. Sasuke came in next as normal, and sat next to his favorite buffer for fangirls as was his tradition. The two weren't friends exactly, but they respected the other's talent and drive for becoming shinobi. Naruto knew they wouldn't be immediately put on a team together, but they likely would work together in the future. The rest of the class filed in more or less at the same time, with the exception of Ino and Sakura, who arrived too late to sit next to their crush once again. They almost thought he was avoiding them, but there was no way that could be true. Well, not for Ino at least, as she took time to actually work on the physical skills of being a kunoichi, especially since Naruto said it might help her get Sasuke. Sakura on the other hand, was about as useless as the average civilian girl that came out of the academy, which is to say, she couldn't fight. She could call up answers to book questions easily, but was essential, as tough as a down pillow. Just as she started her deliberate walk to move Naruto away from her seat though, Iruka walked through the door and ruined yet another opportunity to sit with the Grand Emo. I dislike both Sakura and Sasuke, but at least one of them will be an acceptable character in this work. I am not going to seriously bash any main character. Mizuki wrote his own jokes though. Alright genin, everyone sit down. That's an order. Iruka brought out his own original technique for the last time that his first class would ever see it in their entirety. It nearly brought a tear to the scarred Shunansai to think about that. Everyone was seated by the time then had come out of his mouth. All of them still amazed their teacher could be so intimidating in spite of having not been one of the teachers to have fought in the war. Alright, I will now read the team numbers, names of genin in each team, and sensei for said genin teams. First, Team 1, nameless side characters, same for 2 through 6. Team 7, you are Inuzuka Kiba, Haruno Sakura, and Uchiha Sasuke. Hataki Kakashi is your sensei. Iruka ignored both Kiba's shouts of indignation and Sakura's screams of true love conquering all and proceeded to simply shout the next team over them. Team 8, you are Mado Naruto, Hyuga Hinata, and Aburame Shino. Yuhi Kurenai is your sensei. Team 10, the other 3 named students, you get Sarutobi Asuma. Ino managed to not even look upset about her team, having matured more than Sakura with the help of her friends. As soon as Iruka finished speaking, a tall man with short hair, a beard and rugged looks came in smoking a cigarette. He also had what appeared to be a red handprint on the side of his face, but seemed able to ignore it. Team 10, follow me. He turned and went right back out the door, not even waiting for his students to follow him. Next through the door came a woman whose appearance gave Naruto what he thought might be a heart attack. Stylishly wild and loose ebony hair framed a chiseled feminine face with full pouting lips and sinfully gorgeous crimson eyes. A slender neck descended from this visage to reveal a body that gave proof of rigorous physical training with its obvious muscle and complete lack of fat. The tight white dress, covered in a motif of rose thorns, clung to the body, wearing it so tightly it seemed in love with it. The very lightly tanned skin that was exposed drew the eyes and held them where they were, reducing the ability of anyone that could appreciate aesthetics to think of anything else. Large and perky, D-cup, or larger? You decide. Breasts, a narrow waist, and perfectly curved hips finished what many might describe as the ideal female as she walked into the room. The ornamental red sleeve on her right arm flashing slightly as she moved. Team 8, you're with me. Even her voice was intoxicating enough to stun anyone unprepared to hear it. Yuhi Kurenai was patient and respectful enough to wait for her students to all stand up and follow her before she turned and left. Naruto recovered from his mini heart attack and followed his angelic-appearing sensei with a smile, certain that he would enjoy his life as a genin. Team 8 sat inside a dango shop, waiting breathlessly as their sensei ordered some of the delicious treats. Hinata looked everywhere but at Naruto, blushing at being in the same booth as her crush. Shino sat still as a statue, already knowing that most restaurants disliked bugs being around. He kept his hidden under his skin. Naruto was unusually quiet and still, his eyes had yet to leave his new sensei, and thoughts about this being the best day since his adoption ran through his head. The 3 new genin more or less had an anticipatory silence going on at the moment, and their sensei sighed under her breath at their lack of interaction. Kurenai had become a jounin in a short few months ago, and this was her first time since her 2-year stint as a teacher that she had students, and she didn't get exactly what she was hoping for. The perfect tracking team she requested was denied in favor of the tradition of the worst being paired with the best. Ever since Jiraiya of the Sannin had become a legend alongside his teammates, Konoha had attempted to replicate this previous success without any real results. Her current students included one Hyuga Hinata, who she had once escorted to and from school because her asshole father wouldn't do it himself. Next up was Aburame Shino, who was as silent as the grave despite his status as a clan heir. Though that isn't as surprising after one considers that the clan he was from don't believe in saying anything more than is necessary. The final was the one student on her team that she didn't request, one Mado Naruto. After hearing about his upbeat attitude and outrageous behavior, it surprised her to see the quiet and still student that was watching her rather intensely. She had no ill will towards the blonde, but hadn't prepared training for an obvious strike fighter like him. She just hoped that he would be willing to learn her genjutsu to tide him over for a while. As Kurenai was thinking about the blonde that had made his way onto the team, he was doing some deep thinking of his own. Now that he had spent the last 20 minutes staring at her, his higher brain function had returned enough for him to consider her abilities and his team. They featured a Hyuga for visual/chakra-based tracking and gentle fist techniques to disable opponents, an Aburame for wide area scent tracking and chakra depletion disabling, and him, a heavy frontline strike fighter. Their sensei's skills were as of yet unknown, but Naruto felt it was safe to guess that a hunter-named teen was the original goal, and that he was on this team simply because Kiba couldn't be. In other words, he was still unwanted and just used as an extra to round the team out. A sigh came from the lips of the Jinchuriki as he pondered why a team like this was set up with genin, as a true hunter team would be all chunin or above. Deciding to wait for their sensei to introduce herself, our hero continued to simply sit quietly and wait. Kurenai saw that none of the genin were about to open up on their own, so she sat at the table with their food and got the ball rolling on her own. Alright everyone, we are going to introduce ourselves. I'll go first. My name is Yuhi Kurenai, I am a genjutsu specialist. I dislike perverts, and people who think that because I am a woman I can't compete with the male shinobi crowd. I enjoy dango, tea, and spending time with my best friend Anko. My goal is to prove that kunoichi are equal to shinobi. Now, why don't you go Hinata? The shy girl eeped and looked down, her fingers pointing into each other. Before speaking, I honestly don't recall Hinata stuttering. So she won't in this story. My name is Hyuga Hinata, I specialize in the gentle fist of my family, and I also make medical salves. I don't really dislike much, but I like pressing flowers, looking for new herb combinations, and watching my idol train. My dream is to bring my family closer together. This was all said so quietly that the group had to strain to hear her, and none of them even caught the part about watching her idol. Naruto decided that he should continue the chain and speak up without being singled out for the introduction. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, I am best in Goken Taijutsu, but I wish to learn and master all of the shinobi arts. I dislike unyouthful people, and like those who let their youth show. I also like training and my weekly ramen, databao. The look on his face after saying this was almost pained. He couldn't believe he had said that annoying tick in front of his teammates and sensei. He had tried so hard to suppress it. My dream is to one day master all shinobi arts. And become the strongest Hokage ever. The few people in the room that knew Guy were all very happy that his adopted son didn't worship youth to the same extent his father did. And that Naruto didn't shout everything he said. Shino, seeing as he was the only one left, then began his introduction. Aburame Shino, specialty in clan insect jutsu. I like bugs, and training in new clan techniques. I dislike people who kill innocent bugs. My goal is to be a good and respectable clan head one day. Naruto looked stunned, he didn't think he had ever heard Shino speak at all before this. And was amazed the boy even could say that much at once. Hinata was being her usual polite self and not looking at Shino in shock, while their sensei simply shook her head at the Aburame's lack of communication with his team. The lack of interaction between members almost had her hopes of passing the first genin team she was ever given shot. But she decided to be optimistic in that at least she didn't have to deal with anyone with a huge ego. Back at the academy, still waiting for their sensei, Kiba and Sasuke sneezed in unison, before glaring at each other for daring to do the same thing the other had. Kurenai dropped out of her musings, ready to enlighten her team about what they had to do. Good, now that we all know each other, I have good news and bad news. The bad news is that none of you are actually genin yet. The shock, betrayal, and slight twitch from her three prospective students brought a slight smile to her face. Or it would if she was a sadist like Kakashi. Speaking of Kakashi, he had just gotten to the hallway that led to his team's class when he sneezed, deciding it was an omen that he wasn't late enough yet. He leaned against the wall to catch a few winks. Instead of enjoying the moment, she decided to give her team the good news. The good news is that I will decide based on a test tomorrow at Training Ground 12. Why does everyone put a team with the training ground that matches its number? Does that mean if enough teams are filled for long enough that there is a team 44 that is stuck with the forest of death? Show up at 9 o'clock sharp or don't show up at all. Acquit yourselves well, and become one of Konoha's newest genin teams. With that said, Kurenai left the three of them on their own, discussing exactly what they thought the test tomorrow might be. When the group separated, despite having ignored each other when they formed, a slight sense of camaraderie was established. Naruto was ecstatic to have friends other than Shikamaru, Lee, and Choji. He had some pretty cool teammates, with Hinata being very kind and Shino being likable, if not very sociable. He also had a beautiful sensei that seemed to really want them to pass. Something in her tone told him that she was just as excited about this as they were. Naruto was heading straight home to speak to his father, he couldn't wait to tell him all about what his team was like. Of course, he had the idea that if he could walk on his fingertips the whole way home it would make it easier to form hand seals, so progress wasn't quite as fast as normal. Why miss an opportunity to train when you needed all the skill you could muster the next day? Of course, if he failed to use just his fingertips, he would need to climb the Hokage monument with chakra while hauling a load of lumber. So he had more than enough to keep him busy until he got home. Upon reaching the door to his home, Naruto righted himself, proud that he had made it this time. "Hey Dad, I'm home." The voice of the excited young shinobi rang through the small building, and immediately a green blur appeared in the hall. "Yash. My youthful son, it is good to see you home. Tell me, what was the result of your team meeting today?" Mato Guy was easily more excited than Naruto was, proud beyond measure that his adopted son was finally moving forward towards his dream. "It was awesome, my sensei Kurenai seems nice, and my teammates are easy to get along with. I was shocked when she said we weren't really genin yet though, how come you never told me there was a second genin exam?" Guy gave a hearty laugh when Naruto asked him that question. Before striking a nice guy pose and allowing his teeth to ping in the light given off by the flames of youth. The sun isn't out, and the lights in the apartment didn't generate enough light to reflect like that. Let alone the moon and stars. Naruto decided that wasn't important and waited for the coming explanation. "You see my boy, that is a tradition, no one tells their children. It is the beginning of accepting a sensei's authority over their team, and everyone gives their own test to determine worthiness. Sometimes you may fail from one person when your showing would have passed you with someone else. This would be Kurenai's first time, so I couldn't help you with information about her test anyway." Nodding his head in understanding, Naruto bid goodnight to his father before trying to get some sleep. After all, Kurenai never said not to be early. At 7 o'clock, Naruto was at the designated ground for the true genin exam, familiarizing himself with the immediate area. There was a cliff with a small waterfall flowing into a river that bisected the center of the ground. Trees rose on the three sides that remained, a common sight in the village. None of Naruto's teammates were there yet, and his sensei was nowhere to be seen. Naruto decided to pass the time with training, who knows when those extra 500 kicks per leg would be useful. As time passed, Shino and Hinata both arrived, Hinata carrying 4 boxes wrapped in cloth with her. After a quick youthful morning, Naruto finished his exercise and went to sit with his team in the shade of the trees. Shino was surprisingly the first one to speak. "Naruto, I have some understanding of Hinata's abilities as they are clan-based, but all I know about you is that you are good at taijutsu and can use the illusion art. Misdirection jutsu, but I don't know any of your other abilities." After getting over his surprise at Shino being the one to start a conversation, Naruto decided not to mention the new jutsu he learned from the scroll and just go with the basics. "Aside from that, I have mastered the Goken, with the exception of the 8 gates of the Hidden Lotus, and can use the transformation, substitution, and the shadow clone jutsu. I also have mastered the tree climbing exercise." Shocked silence was all that answered him, his team unable to fathom that a genin already knew a kenjutsu. They didn't have the time to respond, however, as Kurenai appeared exactly at 9. She had finished plans for her test long ago, and had decided to wait for 9 sharp to give her team time to interact. She was satisfied with the way they sat together as proof that they were interacting, and hopefully they were all ready to demonstrate for her. "Good to see all of you here. Now before I explain the test, I want all of you to remember something. Konoha is the strongest hidden village because of its teamwork. Teams like the Sannin, the Inoshikacho, and even the original duo of the Senju brothers that founded the village gained fame for their power. But some of the most successful teams are nearly unknown. The combo of Mato Guy and Hitaki Kakashi, or even further back Shimura Danzo and our current Hokage. They showed far better success as teams than they ever would alone. In this test, you will pass or fail as a team. Am I clear?" Her 3 students nodded, Naruto having pulled a notepad from somewhere and apparently copied what she said word for word. That type of dedication warmed her heart, her opinion of the genin prospect rising. "I've let my lecture have enough time to sink in, time to get on with their exam. Alright, in this test I am going to hide from you. The task that you 3 have is to find my location and disable me for return to the village. I will be acting as a newbie chunin that has gone missing nin, and you are the squad charged with my capture. As a handicap in this test, Shino, you can't place a female bug on me beforehand, as it would be unlikely that you have one on the random ninja that has deserted. You have 1 hour, ready?" After getting a look of determination and nod from her 3 students, Kurenai threw down a smoke bomb and used a shunshin to escape. When the smoke cleared, the 3 turned to each other to form a plan. Naruto was the first to speak this time, having an idea about the best way to utilize their resources. "Guys, I think I've got a plan. I will make a group of 10 shadow clones to send out in all directions. Shino, do the same with your Kakechu. Hinata, the real me and Shino will stay at your side as you search for Kurenai-sensei with your Byakugan. Anything to add? Two simultaneous headshakes was the response he received, leading him to grin and from a hand seal where he formed a cross with the index and middle fingers of his hands. Left hand vertical and right horizontal. Yash. Shadow clone jutsu. The group of 10 clones formed pairs, before spreading out through the woods. Shino released a large amount of his Kikeichu from his sleeves, sending them up the cliffside to cover the most possible ground. Hinata then formed a hand seal with fingers intertwined except for index, which pointed straight up. Byakugan. Naruto briefly gazed at her, this being the loudest sound he had ever heard from her. All of their abilities in use, Naruto turned his head toward Hinata and asked, "Can you see her, Hinata-chan?" "Your ability is quicker than mine or Shino's." The shy girl shook her head. "No, Naruto-kun, sensei does know my current range with the Byakugan though, so she might still be close. I can only see within 80 meters, unable to do anything until either Shino or Naruto had a reaction." The group waited tensely. Almost 20 minutes of their hour passed before Naruto turned his head to where one of his clones felt a genjutsu, shortly before it died, its partner trying to stall against their target. "Alright guys, if we run, we can be there in 5 minutes if we head straight, I've got her." Dashing into the woods, the three arrived in time to see Naruto's clone disappear into a cloud of smoke. How can a genin make shadow clones? I may be a new jounin, but I can barely make two. Kurenai managed not to voice her incredulous thoughts, but knew that she had been found. Naruto, being the fastest of the group, closed in on Kurenai before the smoke cloud had even fully dissipated, shouting as he flew through the air towards his sensei. Dynamic entry. The flying kick was neatly dodged, experience in combat and special training to increase maneuverability coming in handy. The blonde turned and attempted a backhand, but Kurenai leaped back and was still unscathed. 3 quick hand seals were made by the more experienced fighter, Naruto not noticing anything change. Hinata however ran straight towards Naruto, and lashed a palm strike that deflected a kick he hadn't sensed from his right. The Kurenai that had yet to move from in front of him dissolved into cherry blossoms, and a quick jab caught a glancing blow to his shoulder. The pain from the blow, slight as it was, returned Naruto to the fight, free from the effects of the technique. Shino was the Kurenai's next target, her dodging past the 2 quick close-range fighters to hit the slower distance fighter. The Shino she struck burst apart into a dark purple swarm of Kikeichu, which immediately latched onto Kurenai, dropping her chakra levels before she managed a quick substitution. The real Shino came out from the trees when a hail of shuriken nearly struck him, some of them even nicking his coat. Hinata was the next attacked, the grown woman using her superior reach, speed and strength to force the heiress on the defensive. 2 of Naruto's other shadow clones burst from the bushes behind Hinata, each with a mighty punch delivered straight to their master sensei's stomach. Doubled over from the surprise blow, Kurenai had her tenketsu sealed right as the bell rang. All ninja save Naruto were panting, his training with his father and natural stamina combining to make him sweaty, but still in control of his breath. His sensei panted more from the pain than exhaustion, as Gentle Fist was anything but, and Naruto's clones had hit with enough force to dispel themselves. When all present had caught their breath, and Hinata had unsealed their sensei's tenketsu, Kurenai smiled at her team. Congratulations, you worked as a team and overcame a superior opponent, even if I was holding back. You 3 pass, and I couldn't be prouder to be your sensei. The kind smile and proud tone got bright smiles out of all her now official students, even Shino managed to let his lips rise. Naruto was quickly overcome with youthful pride and joy, and hugged Kurenai while shouting, "Yash! Thank you sensei, I couldn't be happier to be on your team, Databeo." Of course this brought an end to the hug, both participants flustered, Kurenai from the unexpected contact with hard muscle. And Naruto from realization of what he'd done and embarrassment letting that thrice-damn tick show itself again. Hinata smiled at the scene, while Shino remained stoic, his smile having faded. In spite of what many in the academy had believed, Hinata didn't like Naruto, she admired and nearly idolized him. She herself had once confused the two, before speaking with Kurenai about it. Kurenai explained that no one thinks the person they love is truly perfect, but that they recognize their flaws and love them in spite of them, or even because of them. She would always admire the blonde, but she knew that she didn't really love him. Hinata asked for everyone to return to the clearing with her, where she revealed the boxes were bento she had prepared for the team to eat lunch together, and to Naruto and Shino's surprise. The food was delicious. "Hey Hinata, how come you didn't mention you could cook so well when we all did introductions yesterday?" Naruto's question was affirmed by Shino, who stated, "I would like to know as well." "Why?" "Because this skill is obviously practiced and could prove in use on missions." Hinata blushed from the praise and attention, before simply answering, "Well, I like to cook, but I don't get to very often, and it slipped my mind when we talked yesterday. Kurenai smiled at the interaction. Her team were certain to get along if this continued. Maybe they could even rival the Sannin one day. She chuckled to herself quietly, while an inexcusable perv, drunk and excessively vain gambler, and traitor/war criminal all felt as if they'd been slighted in some way. That night, after all the genin had returned home, a meeting that had been waiting 3 hours on Kakashi managed to finally get underway as he walked in the door. The third Hokage barely glanced at the chronically time-challenged shinobi as he addressed those gathered. Now that our resident early gray-haired ninja is here, and no, by the way, I don't want to know why you're late. We can get on with stating who passed and who failed. Kakashi looked disappointed that he wouldn't be able to use his awesome excuse. He lost track of time while thinking up new excuses. Legitimately, but everyone else simply began stating their success/fail for their students. Team 1 through 6, you can leave, I know you failed. Let's continue with Kakashi, the generic ninja for the filler corps all left. Knowing the Hokage was too busy to hear them say their team failed again. Oh right. Well, they passed, if only just. The Inuzuka hates both his teammates, the Uchiha hates both his teammates, and the she wishes she was good enough to be eye candy is obsessed with the Uchiha and hates the other one. I think they'll be fine. All those gathered stared at the laid-back ninja, before turning to Kurenai so she could report. My team passed as well, and even finished the extra credit and disabled me. It was her turn to be stared at in shock. Though more for the fact that her team finished their test than her being crazy. To actually disable her would be like one of Kakashi's team getting a bell from him. It shouldn't happen. While not exactly a match for Kakashi, she was a jounin and had served in combat before. Her being captured was entirely unexpected. Asuma decided to trample her pride as she had his the day before and laughed out. If you can be captured by 3 genin that weren't even supposed to be able to find you without the Inuzuka, maybe you shouldn't be a jounin. The approaching argument was silenced by a glare from Asuma's father, the Hokage. Not wanting to stay any longer, Asuma simply stated pass before all present were dismissed. Kurenai went home looking forward to meeting her team the next day and introducing them to training and smirk D-ranks. An evil chuckle filled her apartment that night, her rather rapid rise through the ranks making D-ranks a recent memory of hers. Now she got to be the one that sat down and watched while others chased that cat. Naruto awoke at 4 in the morning, practically shivering with excitement to go on his first official mission as a ninja. He also looked forward to seeing his youthful team in training under someone as talented as his sensei. His genjutsu was certain to skyrocket and approach his other skills with training under someone like her. His father had said that she made chunin at 14 and jounin at 21. The fact that she specialized in genjutsu meant that he would be able to learn and become closer in his goal of mastering all shinobi arts and becoming the greatest ninja and Hokage ever. After a quick breakfast, comprised of a single champion breakfast sandwich, French toast with hash browns, an egg fried over hard, a bacon lattice, and topped with medallion-cut strawberries and another slice of French toast, and a tall glass of OJ, he began his early morning solo training with 3 laps around the village. As he finished, he changed direction to training ground 12 without even stopping for a breath. Naruto closed in on his team's personal training ground 3 hours early, and was once again the first person there. After a standard warm-up, Naruto remembered that he was free of the promise he had made his Gigi. Naruto gained a spark in his eye that could only be caused by one of 3 things: learning a new technique or skill, free ramen at Itaraku's, or increasingly effective training. One swift hand seal and a shout of shadow clone jutsu rang out in the clearing. Soon, an even 100 blondes had filled the area, before looking towards their creator in anticipation. Naruto grinned and even managed to ping like his dad with his teeth, before rallying his clones and giving their orders. Alright. Break into groups of 10, Group 1, practice our taijutsu. Group 2, practice our taijutsu while standing on the cliff face. Groups 3 and 4, you will play a nice war game in the woods, attempt to score critical damage with thrown shuriken and kunai. Groups 5 through 8, stand by and take position anytime one of your brethren falls. Groups 9 and 10, you will be facing me in combat. Ready? Begin. All of the groups ran off to do their assigned tasks, while Naruto stared down the 20 remaining copies. 2 of the copies dashed headlong at Naruto, while 3 more began peppering him with shuriken. Naruto ducked the roundhouse from the first clone, before hastily rolling away from the volley of incoming shuriken. As he stood up, he was forced into executing a back bend to dodge a hammer fist from the second clone. Naruto growled to himself as he launched into a leaf hurricane, taking out both of the close-range clones, only to be struck as 4 more charged him during the recovery. If I can't beat all 18 remaining clones untouched, I'll do all my missions for the next week, with one hand tied behind my back. Determination flooding him. Naruto leapfrogged the clone currently trying to launch a backhand at him before kicking off the clone's back, diminishing his goal to 17. As he rose into the air, Naruto began to spin his body around, launching shuriken and kunai in every direction. 8 more clones fell before he regained a footing on solid ground, and all of them abandoned using ranged attacks in favor of straight hand-to-hand. The remaining clones launched into a quick series of combinations, several favoring quick jabs, followed by heavy axe kicks. Others trying to sweep his feet out from under him before launching potentially devastating elbows. Naruto dodged, weaved, ducked, hopped, and deflected in such a way that not one attack landed correctly. Utilizing another tactic of his father's, Naruto disappeared and reappeared in one instant behind the farthest back of all his clones. Using the opening the dancing leaf shadow presented, he grabbed the surprised clone and levered his body to throw it into 3 others, leaving only 4 opponents. The clones slowly circled their creator, wary of being the next to fall. The true Naruto elected to go on the offensive this time, flipping forwards to bring his heel crashing down on the spot his clone had just vacated. Immediately countering, assuming that the original had not time to maneuver, the clone unleashed a powerful uppercut into his target's chin. Instead, the disturbing crunch the clone expected from the bone-jarring impact, he got only a familiar pop and a cloud of smoke. Turning to where the rest of his siblings were, he watched a low sweep take out his remaining allies. A quick substitution had ruined the cautious approach the chakra constructs took, leaving a duel between creator and clone. Knowing that this would likely be his last attack, the clone slid across the ground hoping for a leg grab to lead into a submission hold. A stomp on his kneecap and he too was removed from his existence, as had his brothers before him. The sound of applause led the sweaty and heavily breathing Naruto to look toward the river in the ground. Gathered at its edge were his 2 friends and teammates, as well as his sensei. Blushing from the attention, he fell back on the old habit of bringing a hand behind his head and smiling, not sure how to respond. That was impressive, Naruto. No genin should be able to move like that or train that intensely. Just the chakra use alone from the jutsu would have killed everyone else in this clearing combined. Kurenai's tone managed to stay the professional sound one would expect from their sensei. While inside she was only just keeping the utter shock from showing. I don't believe this, he is a genin and he is nearly as fast as I am. What the hell did Guy do to make him like this? Kurenai's smile became less of a strain as she remembered seeing the eccentric, youth-obsessed Jounin climbing the Hokage monument with his chin once. If the man could do that without possessing some demonic being that granted regeneration, then Naruto surely had a higher ceiling and faster rate of acclimation. The other 2 were unable to hold in their shock. Hinata sat stunned with her mouth open and Shino may or may not have been breathing. With him it can be hard to tell, but currently Naruto was leaning in the direction of not. Naruto dispelled his remaining clones, almost flinching from the rapid influx of memories, before joining his team at the riverbank. Kurenai managed to grab her team's attention when she walked out onto the river's surface, and stood watching their surprise. By now your families have introduced you to tree walking or surface clinging as some call it. This is the next step in that exercise. Whereas in the first you channel a steady amount of chakra to stick to a flat, solid surface, in this exercise the surface tension of water fluctuates. And you must make your chakra fluctuate in parallel with it. I want all of you to try this on your own. If within 1 hour you fail to progress, speak to me and we will find out what you're doing wrong. The 3 nodded their heads before attempting the feat themselves. Hinata actually managed to stand on the water for nearly 20 seconds before she sank knee-deep in the river. Neither Naruto nor Shino had that immediate level of success. Half an hour passed before the 3 took a minute to think about ways to hurry it along. Hinata activated her Byakugan before attempting the exercise again, and this time with her enhanced chakra vision, was able to match both the change in surface tension and the variation made by the river's current. Naruto and Shino both congratulated the shy girl in being the first to succeed before turning back to the water, Naruto with youthful determined flames and Shino with, well, he wanted to do well too. Kurenai came up and congratulated Hinata, before telling her that she must also be able to fight on the water without sinking before she had mastered the exercise. Naruto once more created a party of clones before once more attempting the exercise. Shino stayed still and quiet, watching the surface of the water move in a regular pattern, attempting to logically discover the flow he needed to synchronize with. 3 more hours passed, and all of Team 8 had moved on to practice fighting and dodging on the water's surface. Seeing as it was noon, Kurenai halted the training in favor of lunch. They returned to the dango and tea stand they ate at when they first met. Alright, now we will train until this time every day, before going to get a mission or two from the Hokage. After we finish, I will set aside 2 hours for individual help if any of you need it, before I return to my apartment. I will show all of you where it is after we finish today's mission. Unless there are any questions, let's get to work. Hiruzen looked at the team as they entered the mission office, mentally smirking as he knew what was about to come. He loved D-ranks, they were a sign of peace and prosperity for the village, as when he had been trained by Tobirama, D-ranks didn't exist. It was either you were a ninja and risking your life on the battlefield or patrolling, or you were a civilian and did your own work. Team 8 requesting a mission, Hokage-sama. Kurenai's voice was mildly strained, as she was unused to speaking to the Hokage still. It made her nervous that she might say the wrong thing and lose her recent promotion to Jounin. The elderly man just smiled however, and looked through the pile of requests on the desk. Well Team 8, congratulations on being the first team in for a mission from the new group. We have such fine missions as painting a fence, delivering flour to the bakery from the warehouse, tilling a farmer's field, and lastly, finding the lost cat of our daimyo's wife. The interior smirk grew to a grin with the look on the faces of the two non-aburame genin in the room. Hinata had tilted her head to the side in confusion that these could be missions, with the exception of the cat one as the daimyo's wife was far too busy to find her own cat. Naruto on the other hand, looked as if his Gigi had pulled a trout out from under his hat and smacked him in the face with it. Maybe I should take a picture, nah, I'll have more faces to look at next year. A shiver went down the Hokage's spine as he thought that, as if to say you never know, you are pretty old. We'll take the mission to find Tora, Hokage-sama. Kurenai chose and was handed the scroll by the esteemed leader before turning and walking out of the room. She actually had to drag Naruto out though, as it turned out that he had fainted from shock and was standing on his feet in spite of this. Alright team, our target is a brown cat with a pink ribbon on its ear. It's named Tora, and there is no info on where it might be. We will head into the woods that lie inside the walls, as if the cat is out of the village proper. The mission is a C rank. Following the orders of their commander/sensei. Team 8 ventured straight to their regular training ground, figuring it might help to begin the search in familiar territory. Naruto made 30 clones before giving them the same directions he had given to the clones that had looked for Kurenai during the team test. Shino released a small swarm of bugs, and Hinata activated her Byakugan. However, even with the combined tracking skills of this group, it took nearly 2 hours to find Tora, and that cat was not happy to be found. Until Hinata started scratching its ears, anyway. Kurenai was floored by the sight of the demon cat acting so tame and cute. Such a thing made no sense, hell, the damned beast had nearly given her a scar. It had gone just as expected at first, the cat had hissed and leaped at Naruto's face and scratched at his eyes. Shino had to dodge or suffer a similar fate. But Hinata caught the cat and it started purring. One grumbling genin, one smiling, and one stoic arrived at the Hokage tower, followed by their sensei. All present in the room watched slack-jawed as Hinata practically cuddled the vicious beast in her hands, save Madame Shinji, the wife of the daimyo of the Land of Fire. She was absolutely ecstatic to get her cat back for the 3rd time this week. Tora's escape attempts had decreased recently. "Oh Tora, come to mommy." The shout made the pacified feline nearly wince. And even struggle to escape once again before it was taken from the comfortable arms that held it and returned to the terrifying meat prison that was one of Madame Shinji's hugs. Ha, cat deserves it for resisting us like it did, I could have lost an eye. Naruto thought this in one of his rare moments of immaturity. While Hinata looked nearly heartbroken when she remembered that they had to return the cat. Shino remained impossible to write down facial reactions for, and Kurenai sweat dropped at the loss on her female student's face and sinister grin on her blondes. The Hokage however found the looks rather entertaining, suppressing a grin as he watched these young genin not even try to hide their emotions. With the exception of the aburame, but that was a given. Well, that's all we can do today, we'll be back same time tomorrow for more missions Hokage-sama. The team left, following Kurenai to her apartment as she had promised. And said their goodbyes to one another after arriving. Naruto was the only genin to remain behind. What it is Naruto, do you need my help with something? Kurenai smiled, happy that one of her students was already taking up her offer of individual help. Yeah Kurenai-sensei. You see, I want to master all the arts of shinobi, including genjutsu. I was wondering if you would help me with maybe learning some new techniques or how to better recognize and break genjutsu. If you don't have time today or don't want to, I understand though. The woman suppressed a giggle as her most active and outgoing student was acting almost like he was shy right then. The contrast made it kind of cute. Cute? I mean funny, right? I have a couple hours free, so what would like to learn most? Naruto's shy words stumbling and rambling changed to a large smile, glad that his new sensei was so kind. His face scrunched up into a thinking pose soon after as he considered her question though, reinforcing the recent notion that had passed through Kurenai's head about her new student. Man, I better not tell Anko about this. She'll start accusing me of being a pedo like that bastard that ruined her life. I think that learning how to recognize and break genjutsu would be best to learn first. Who knows when the enemy might try to use one. Kurenai nodded, satisfied that the kind of hyper-blonde chose the part he would have the most trouble with first. Very well, Naruto, we can do this training right here in my home. No reason to waste precious training time walking back out to the forest, right? Another grin and a nod was the answer she received, so she turned and opened the door to her apartment. Naruto's nervousness returned after a few seconds, realizing a few things that he had not recognized before. First, he was alone with Kurenai-sensei for the first time. Next, he was going inside her house, which his father had once told him that he should never be alone with a woman in her home until he was at least 15. But this was for training, so he didn't think he'd be in trouble. Last and most important, he was alone with Kurenai in her house. Seriously, he had started developing a crush on her, and this one fact would ruin the concentration he needed for his training. A feminine throat being cleared alerted Naruto to the fact that time was still moving outside his head. Blushing and scratching behind his head much as he had that morning, Naruto quickly followed a now openly giggling Kurenai into her home. He only hoped she wouldn't ask him just what he had been thinking about after they got in. When they reached the living room, Kurenai motioned for Naruto to sit in a living chair across a glass coffee table from her own recliner. There were few pictures in the apartment, save one of Kurenai and another beauty with purple hair hugging. A few paintings lined the soft cream-colored walls, most of them being nature scenes save one of a large snake wrapping around a blooming cherry tree. Noticing Naruto's eyes staying on the photograph on the table, Kurenai smiled. She's my roommate and best friend. She's on a mission right now though, so if you want to meet her, it could take a while. Looking down and blushing having been caught staring at the picture. Naruto was ashamed that she had known he was trying to determine the relationship between his sensei and this other woman. Fearing that the woman he was crushing on was one of many kunoichi that preferred the company of other women. Of course, in defense of kunoichi, most of them are hot enough to make completely and avidly straight women bi-curious, so it wasn't really that surprising. In any event, Naruto managed to get over his embarrassment and look back up at his sensei. A quick smile from her and the training commenced. Naruto, you are familiar with the techniques to break genjutsu, right? The raven-haired woman asked, curious, hoping that this much he already knew. Yes, Kurenai-sensei, halting chakra flow before bursting as much as possible, causing yourself pain, or having a teammate channel their own chakra through you. I have more trouble telling whether or not a genjutsu has been activated than breaking free. Kurenai nodded thoughtfully, before deciding on a way to train him. Well Naruto, since you seem to be a hands-on type of learner, I believe that the fastest way to get you to recognize genjutsu will be for me to repeatedly layer genjutsu on you. I will start with some of the more obvious techniques before changing to increase subtlety every time you can recognize a technique within 5 seconds. This training may take you a while though, so you will probably need to meet me after missions for at least a few weeks. Naruto, while nervous about spending so much time alone with his sensei, nodded and thanked her for taking the time to help him. Thanks Kurenai-sensei, it means a lot that you would use so much of your free time to help me. Kurenai smiled lightly before replying, I'm your sensei Naruto. Being able to help one of my students makes me happy, and you building your courage enough to ask me for help makes me proud. That had been the end of conversation and the start of training. Training that would last for a whole month before Kurenai decided that Naruto was ready to move on to actually learning techniques in genjutsu. The team training had moved from chakra control to team building and sparring, as Hinata and Shino both learned family techniques. The missions got more and more boring and mind-numbingly easy during the whole month. Even the catch Tora mission only took about 20 minutes since Shino left a bug on the cat and it would run straight to Hinata anytime it saw her. As their teamwork increased and their skills grew, Kurenai believed them ready to finally take on a C-rank mission. On the 1-month anniversary of their official team formation, they went to the Hokage to request a mission that would be both Hinata and Naruto's first time outside the village. Hokage-sama, Team 8, has come to request a C-rank. Hiruzen looked at the faces of the team, all of which had signs of experience and determination. Even the shy Hyuga and the stoic Aburame had their faces set in such a way as to show their resolve to obtain and complete this mission. Very well, there are currently 3 C ranks available. A delivery to Tanzaku-gai, an escort and protection detail for the Land of Waves, and a supply delivery to a border outpost on the border of Taki. While Kurenai believed her team ready for combat, she didn't want to risk going too close or beyond the borders of their country. As missing nin became more common, the further one went from a friendly village. We'll take the town delivery, Hokage-sama. If I may ask though, what is being carried? The delivery is a statement of financial record from the bank, to be delivered to the mayor of town. It is to be delivered unopened. Little to no expected combat. Taking a quick look to make sure her team heard everything that the Hokage said, she took the scroll from the Hokage. Team, you have an hour to pack for a week-long mission and meet me at the gate. I'll see you there. With a quick nod, the three genin separated and ran for their own homes. Naruto was lucky as his father had told him to always have a bag packed and ready for long missions, as sometimes you didn't get much notice before being forced to leave. As he walked through the door to his room and grabbed his bag, Guy appeared. My most youthful son, where are you going? I was hoping you could train with your old man tonight. Tears seemed ready to fall from Guy's face. In the past month, the two rarely saw or spoke to one another, with Guy going on many missions and Naruto spending his spare time training with his sensei. Sorry Dad, I'm going on my first C rank with my team today. We have to go to Tanzaku-gai and see the mayor. This report brought an entirely different type of tears from Guy, tears of a more youthful variety. Yash. My son and his youthful team are on their first C rank mission. We must celebrate with a feast of youthful ramen at Ichiraku's when you return to celebrate. I should get you a gift too, something to spur you even grander displays of your youth. While Guy continued to rant, even his son could take only so much about the flames of youth before tuning out. With that in mind, he just waved goodbye and left for the gate, not wanting to be late for his first real mission. When he approached the gate, Naruto saw that only Kurenai had arrived, so he walked over and stood by her side, waiting patiently for the rest of his team. He remained still and silent until Kurenai brought him out of his reverie. So Naruto-kun, are you excited about the mission? Over the last month, Naruto had spent more time with Kurenai than anyone else. And she had become the person he was closest to and trusted most next to his father. This was reflected by Kurenai in the way she spoke to him, and by himself in the way that he would speak to her about his deeper thoughts about the village that only his father had heard before. I am very excited, but I'm also nervous. I've never seen what the world is like outside the village. What if the people outside treat me the same way people have always treated me here? Naruto's deep fear that the majority of people all would view him as a being that shouldn't exist was usually hidden behind the face of a determined youth showed briefly. Kurenai already knew about this, as one of the first genjutsu she used was the illusion art, Nightmare View Jutsu. Inside this technique, he watched as all those he cared for turned their backs on him, treating him as the populace had long done, rejecting him completely. He had broken down into tears in her living room, the first time tears of fear and pain left him since the night of his adoption. When the technique was broken, he explained what had happened and fought through the pain. After the rather awkward pause that happened as Naruto remembered that night, he turned to speak. Hey Kurenai-sensei, hey sensei, Naruto, it's time to leave. Hinata's shout had abruptly ended the sentence Naruto had been about to say, and with no further ado they left. In spite of it being their first C rank, nothing memorable had happened. 3 days there, 1 day in town, and 3 days back without any violence. As the rather disappointed team returned their scroll to get their pay, however, a pug wearing a leaf headband and dark blue coat ran into the room. Kakashi and his team need backup fast. He is wounded and they expect further enemy contact. The Hokage nearly fell out of his chair at the idea of Kakashi even being touched by anything but a female client during a C rank. Pakken, what exactly happened, teammate? I know you just got back, but Kurenai is the only available jounin and you are a talented genin team. Please listen to Pakken and then follow him to Kakashi. The panting dog took a few breaths to prepare himself to speak again, while teammate stood wide-eyed as the dog spoke. Kakashi's mission was a fraud, the client lied to save money as he could afford nothing more than a C rank. About 2 hours out, the demon brothers were defeated, and the ruse exposed. Kakashi decided to continue the mission, as he believed that he could handle any threats brought out by Gato, who wishes to stop construction of the bridge. Zabuza, the demon of the mist, attacked the team, however. Kakashi managed to defeat him after being captured in a water prison by channeling lightning chakra through his body and electrocuting both himself and his target. Zabuza was retrieved by a fake hunter nin that was actually on his side, and Kakashi is currently laid up in bed at the client's home recovering. The small dog was panting again after saying so much. But he looked ready to run back to his master immediately. You heard Pakken, team, let's go back up team 7. With that statement, Kurenai motioned Pakken to lead them to Kakashi, and team 8 began a mad dash for the land of waves. This was all for now. Thank you for watching, I hope you liked it and that you will be back for more. Please like, share and subscribe. See ya.